Yes, you did read that title right. Hi, my name is Beck Leavesley and I'm a YA fantasy author. My debut novel is coming out in like a month and a half, and my first chapter needs a little bit of work. Now, a huge part of my publishing process has been my decision to decide to self-publish my book. But essentially, I have decided to take on the role of an entire publishing house on my shoulders. Yay. Now, while I'd like to do everything myself, I can't. And when you have a first chapter that you've literally rewritten 11 times for a book that has half as many drafts of the full manuscript, it's time to call in some help. Now, I'd love to tell you exactly what happened, but first, we need to take a little trip. Okay, so that out there, that's my home. That is where I grew up for most of my life. Most of the time during the summer, it is like a picture perfect summer. So yeah, you got a sneak peek of my love for the lakes, my love for summer. Sorry, it's not summer right now. 9 months out of the year looks like this, and then the golden 3 months looks like my book. And this is where I met the Sunset Project. I can't talk about my experience with the Hunger Games editor without talking about the Sunset Project. You can look up their website on your own time, but essentially they are a nonprofit organization located in northeastern Michigan, and their mission is to better the local communities by investing in the arts and in mental health. They have a special project that they host every single summer in honor of the late Sawyer J. Boyd, and it is a grant opportunity in which young local creatives can apply to win up to $2,000 for a creative endeavor of their choice. In May 2024, I applied for this grant, and in June, I won the full $2,000. Now, I'm talking about this before I get into the rest of this video because I don't want to glaze over any details or pretend that I somehow did this all by myself. Hiring editors is expensive, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm like seriously loaded or something. I could not have done this without the Sunset Project, and they have quite literally made my dreams come true. I never want anyone to think that I somehow did this all by myself. I didn't. Amazing men and women have come alongside me, and you're going to get to read about them all one day in the acknowledgments in the back of my book. But for now, all I can say is that I'm deeply grateful to the Sunset Project, and I'm deeply grateful to all the people that have supported me. Alrighty, enough mushy gushy stuff. Can we get back to politics? How did you know you needed an editor? Simple answer. Everyone needs an editor. There are 3 different kinds of editing services, but you don't necessarily need to hire someone for each individual service. Developmental editing looks at big picture aspects and story continuities. Copy editor goes through the manuscript line by line, and it looks for overused words, poor grammar, unclear phrases, or wording. A proofreader looks for basic level technical issues, so formatting errors, typos, incorrect grammar, or discontinuity for spelling and punctuation. Can you guess which service I went for? If you guessed number 2, you're correct. Why did I choose copy editing? My manuscript had already gone through 7 drafts and over a dozen beta readers, so a lot of the big overarching issues have already been ironed out, and I really just needed someone to go through line by line and make sure it was professional, clear, and understandable. How did you hire the Hunger Games editor? Well, there's a special little website called Readsy. This video isn't sponsored in any way, shape, or form, but Readsy, you know where to find me. Essentially, Readsy is a marketplace for freelance professionals, and that word is very, very important. Professionals. On Readsy, you must have 3 years of professional editing experience, you must have worked for a traditional publisher, and you must have worked on a minimum of 5 well-reviewed, already published books. Those are some high qualifications. Essentially, once I decided that I wanted to work with Readsy, I combed through pages and pages of professionals and decided on 5 that I wanted to send my proposal to. How did you get the Hunger Games editor to accept your proposal? It all has to do with the project brief. Okay, so I thought it would be fun to show you just straight up what the actual project brief is that I submitted. I gave a bio about myself. This is a super short bio. I reiterated the title. I gave her the tagline. And then this is where I pitched the actual price, which is really scary. And I'm gonna be totally honest, it was terrifying when you're kind of like going into this and you're like, wow, we have to talk about money. But it's a business. They gotta make money, you gotta pay money. So it's really not that scary. Reedsy actually gives you a wonderful option on their blog website to calculate what they expect your cost to be based on your genre, your word count, and which editing service you are applying for. I gave my sources and I said, this is kind of what Reedsy blog calculated for me, and I would like to work within this budget as closely as possible. However, I'm also open to hiring based on compatibility and skill, not necessarily price. Now, the sample work. This one gave me some trouble because the sample work is something that you give to the editor so that they can read what your book is like, and it gives them a sense of how they would edit your manuscript. Now, it is standard practice to submit chapter 1. As we have already established, my chapter 1 is quite possibly the hardest and most difficult part of my book. So what did I do? I submitted chapter 1. It is standard practice to submit chapter 1, and it's also very confusing to get like a random snippet from the middle of a book when you don't know who these people are. So instead I just decide, you know what? There's a reason that it's standard practice, and I'm going to work my butt off to polish this first chapter as much as humanly possible, and then I'm gonna send it to them. Book details. So we decided to go with a plot summary. This is not a blurb, so that whoever's reading this can understand, okay, she does actually have a story. Key themes. My book is a story about unlikely friendships, loyalty, and overcoming fears. Characters are forced to work together and see each other as people instead of just products of their environment. As the characters are faced with secrets and betrayal, they must learn to trust themselves and overcome their fears to trust each other. And then technical information. I really wanted to include technical information because I don't want to jump scare anybody into thinking like, oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be one thing and now it's something completely different. My book is fast-paced and dialogue heavy. It is third person limited with 4 different points of view, target audience, comp titles, and USP. So target audience, basically it's me just saying, if you like modern fantasy stories, if you like dynamic narratives, fast-paced books, and stories that have dark implications, hi, you might want to read my book. And then lastly, they give you a section to talk about your main characters, and so I've got to black this out, obviously, because it's gives a lot of spoilers. That is the project brief in a nutshell. That is what the editor accepted and what she gave me the quote on. That was my first impression to the editor of The Hunger Games, Miss Jennifer Rees. Now you know. Okay, so what I just ended up doing was, I actually made a short about this a while back, that I changed one of my main characters' names before I sent it to the editor of The Hunger Games, and I just changed it back. It was one of those situations where the name was a filler name, and it was always a filler name, and I always felt like I was going to change the name at some point, and then I never did, and then I was like, shoot, I really need to change this name. But honestly, I felt like I needed to change the name to realize that I actually didn't hate the name that much. I have made the executive and the final decision to change the name back to the original name, and that is the name you will all know him by. Anyways, I need to open up the first chapter and read it all the way through, so that is what we are going to do next. Just finished reading the chapter, and now I have my editor's notes open. But I still feel like I'm missing something, because the concept that I have is that there is this early graduation program, and main character wants to get into it. His best friend has already gotten into it. So I need to clearly establish why main character wants to get into it, why his best friend already got into it, what it means to the main character if he doesn't get into it, and like what it is. So let's read some of her notes. In reference to the commencement ceremony, she said, it feels a little confusing. Is this actually commencement ceremony or something different? It's unclear. So I need to clear up exactly what they're doing here. How was this supposed to happen? Why were they doing this? And what went wrong? That's what I need to nail down. I think I have it solved. So there's like 2 locations, like kind of like 2 different scenes in this one chapter, like 2 different locations. And I'm gonna have to change the setting of the second location. So put them in a different location. And I think it's going to make sense now. Why they had to do it the way they did, what went wrong, how it was supposed to work, and what the consequences are. Boom. I'm so excited! So I'm gonna do the quick side-by-side for you guys because I know if it were me, I think I'd want to know what was actually changed in this first chapter. My one side over here is the old draft, and then this side is the one that she helped me change. So like I said in the vlog, the 2 different things that are a little bit tricky I was trying to figure out was how do we introduce this graduation ceremony and how do we make it clear what these 2 characters are doing. And now this is where we changed a lot. So you can see here in red, these are things that I deleted from the old version. And then over here in yellow, this is stuff that I added into the new version. I not only wanted to introduce the idea of what this graduation ceremony is supposed to be, but I wanted to do it early so that the reader automatically understood what was at stake. But the hardest thing is I really didn't want to ramble and I didn't want to like info dump. So I made it a little bit of a peep into his character because up here, he does like a little bit of like math, and him and Dill joke about how much Silas likes doing just random calculations in his head. It would be interesting to bring that into his description of the graduation ceremony and his description of early graduation applications, because I wanted that to not only be like me telling the reader what this is, but I wanted it to feel like Silas telling the reader what this is, if that makes sense. So one of the things that you can see I added in here, all this yellow, is a very, very clear description of what this program does, how you get into it, what the steps are. Again, another clarifying paragraph about what the early graduation program is, but this time we're covering why he wants to get into it. So I can just read this for you guys because I kind of like it, but the early graduation program wasn't a stupid side quest like his Junior Achievement Enterprise Club or the debate team. This was his ticket to Ivy League acceptances, a corporate internship, or even fewer tuition costs because of his nearly guaranteed scholarships. Whatever career Silas wanted, he'd be a year ahead. Doctor, lawyer, biostatistician, it didn't matter the field, he'd have his master's degree at the ripe age of 22, and it was only up from there. Plus, he wouldn't be left behind for a year when Dill graduated. There's like the actual reason why he wants to get into this. He sort of claims that it's because of all these acceptances and these wonderful things that he wants, but really he doesn't want to be left alone. And that comes into play in chapter 3, but I can't show you guys that. This is the first scene of the first chapter. There is a second scene in the chapter, and you could just sit here and like pause the video and just try and read this first scene if you want to, or you can download the full first chapter in my newsletter. I'm going to put the link in my description, so just go to the description box, sign up for the newsletter, and you will get the first chapter in your inbox. I am so excited for you guys to read this. I haven't told anybody that I was going to be doing this. Like, I haven't even hinted on any of my social media that there was any possibility that you guys would be reading an actual excerpt from the book, but you can today, because today is a special day and I'm feeling nice and feeling generous. Take advantage of my generosity. It won't last long. Download the first chapter. Go do it. Bye. This whole experience has been humbling and energizing and amazing and honestly kind of surreal. I'm just a random wannabe who wrote a book by the lake, and now I am working with the very people who helped shape the stories that made me want to be a writer. That's just about the craziest sentence I've ever uttered in my entire life. But if there's one piece of advice that I would give to someone who's watching this video and is thinking, I could never do that, you can. I understand that I am extremely lucky and extremely privileged to be in the place that I am right now. I've been so fortunate to be able to work with people like the Sunset Project and with Jennifer Reese and with my wonderful cover artist. But if I were to give advice to this, I would say that just go for it. And I know that sounds so cliche and overused and overdone, but when I tell you that that phrase is the only reason I ever submitted the proposal to the Hunger Games editor, all I could do was think to myself, the worst she can do is say no. I wasn't going into this expecting that it would actually happen. Every artist has to be a little delusional sometimes. And that's what I would say to you guys, is that I quite seriously was just a random girl with a book idea with absolutely no clue how she was going to publish it. Hopefully this video has been inspiring to you. Hopefully it's been cool and a little bit informational so you guys can know if you're ever interested in doing something like this. You guys have resources and ideas and templates, but I really want to stress that even though I am extremely privileged and so blessed and fortunate to be where I am today, a lot of these decisions can be made by anyone. You can make the decision to trust your gut, pull a bold move, and shoot for the stars. Dang, that sounded so cheesy. I don't know how I'm gonna edit that, but I really do believe it, you guys. Every artist has to be a little cheesy sometimes, I think. That's all I have to say. I'm so thankful that I've been able to share this journey with you guys so far. I appreciate every single person that clicks on this video. All your support in the comments have quite truly meant the world to me. So if you're interested in any more information about my publishing journeys, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you want a sneak peek at the book, join the newsletter down below. First chapter is waiting for you. Thank you for being here, and welcome to Noontide.